Virtual presentations. They say it only takes 3 seconds for the audience to determine whether they're going to listen to you or not. So if your video is still on, I passed that test. Some interesting facts about visual presentations are that 85% of marketers invested in visual communication as their primary source of contact marketing. What did they do in that? The most important thing they did in that was that they converted every proposition to dollars and cents. So any business proposition you have should be converted into monetization, into monetary figures, so that the audience has some reason to listen to you. That's the single most important point which I have gathered from my study of virtual presentations. Stephen Gates, in fact, is the person who has formalized this proposition. Now, the first question which comes to mind is, why should we have virtual presentations? We need to have virtual presentations because we are spread geographically. We need to save time and money. And it has been proven that negotiation outcomes are better if you have virtual presentations. Obviously, because they are faster, the per dime and the travel expenses are cut down, and the situation today definitely warrants it. Now, before you begin a visual presentation, you must choose the best technology that you can get. It can be Zoom, it can be webinar, it can be Hangout, it can be Blackboard. In Zoom, what I know is they have good picture quality, but they have free sessions of 40 minutes. So if you want to go beyond 40 minutes, please ensure you've bought visual time. Now, before you begin your presentation, preload a well-defined title slide and practice it as often as you can. There is this gentleman by the name of Todd Dewitt, who is a PhD and an authenticity expert as well as an author. He said these tips about the title slide, etc. My inputs are that virtual backgrounds can be utilized. Bookshelves, if they are behind you, can be arranged with suitable titles. The slideshow which you have should not be visible. For example, if you're doing it through Zoom, then the slides should not show at the left so that the people can, be distracted. You should go onto the slideshow as soon as you start sharing your slides. And tell your audience if certain eventualities occur, what you'll do. For example, if the connection gets timed out, then you have to reassemble, that you've sent them another link. Those kind of things are really important. Now, the beginning should be with certain non-verbal indicators. One of them is a slight smile or a neutral expression. Grooming is extremely important. It shows your attention to detail. You can afford to look stylish and tailored. And if you have the choice between formal and informal attires, go for a formal one. There you can't go wrong. With the ladies, avoid very tight clothing. Don't use too many heels if you have a full-length presentation going on. Large or noisy jewelry undermines your credibility. And they say that the choice and maintenance of your shoes is something which the audience looks at. Now, in a virtual presentation, normally we have up till the waist, so you don't get to see the shoes. But nevertheless, sometimes you get up to retrieve something, or the camera switches from the selfie to the non-selfie mode. So one should be very careful of all this. And posture, one cannot overemphasize, because it gives you authority, it gives you credibility, and it gives you strength. So you stand up tall or sit well. Now, eye contact, look at the camera as much as you can. That is, memorize your presentation. That becomes very utilitarian, because then it looks as though you're having a face-to-face conversation with somebody else, and you're almost able to replicate a direct encounter. Your hands, if they shake, what do? You put them on the table and avoid picking up things. And if you have to have hand gestures, they should match your verbal delivery. This is an important point. You might have heard the name Alan Ackman. He's a video trainer, a professional business writer, and he has given tips on PowerPoint presentations. He says, set the agenda for the presentation and tell the time of its duration. Emphasize the benefits. Modulate your voice more than you would do in a traditional lecture. And keep the slide content changing very quickly. Simple animations like fade and appear are better used. Don't get into complex animations. And if the slides are small, then make sure that the fonts are large and sharper images are there. One thing I've noticed is if you have too much data in one slide, people tend to get distracted. So one methodology is to have animation and to present point by point. Two is give the crux of the point on the slide and explain it yourself. So comes the tip again, which I gave. Understand as much as you can and memorize your presentation. Now, what are the challenges with virtual presentations? There's research done by Petrula Vrontikis, Petrula, Petrula, Vrontikis. She says it's difficult to get a handle on reactions. Obviously, in a virtual presentation, you can't get a handle on reactions. And you need to think on your feet. And if you have certain problems, you have to preempt them. What if the audio goes? What if the slides don't, work? She has said something like, visual presentations are not about relationships and trust building. Now, this is something I'm not in agreement with, because certain other researchers have said it is all about trust building. And the casual atmosphere in a virtual presentation is deceptive. So be very particular. You put forth your best foot forward. And you have to have heightened senses to understand the pauses and the communication cues of the participants. So it's better you keep the videos on. If they distract you, then of course you have the option of switching off the certain videos, but keep the audience videos on as much as you can. What are the types of virtual negotiations that you have? They are synchronous and asynchronous. Synchronous means that we are having an interaction face to face. Asynchronous means something like an email. Now they say asynchronous negotiations are better in solving problems, but synchronous ones are better because they help in usage of emotion, competitive spirit. They bring out both these points. A Macedonia study was done, and that said that because perception is reduced and body cues are not very clear, like for example, you cannot see more than this much of me, you will not be able to get a lot of my body language cues. So that is the reason you have to be more involved in virtual presentations. In psychology, there was an experiment which was done in which essays were distributed to the control and the experimental group. There were two ladies, one was very well dressed and the other was very shabbily dressed. And on the basis of the essays and the photograph, the people had to rate the two ladies. The ones who saw the well-dressed lady gave her much more positive attributes. And the ones who saw the badly dressed lady, they gave her negative attributes. What was the catch? The catch was that the essays were identical. So ideally, they should have rated the ladies the same. This is called the halo effect. You are more likely to forgive better dressed people even if they fail. Well-groomed, properly attired people are assumed to be good people. That's why, con men make it a point to be impeccably groomed. There's a reason. And these are things nobody tells us. We know, but we tend to forget. I have certain examples from certain companies which have utilized the tricks of virtual presentation. Now, there's a company called Atlassian, which uses the technique of pre-mortem. In a pre-mortem, you identify the threats to your virtual presentation and develop a defense against it. As I told you, what if the audio goes? What if the visual goes? What if I'm asked a question I don't know anything about? So you have to gauge the risk severity, probability of either option, and plan how to minimize the threat. Then there is another technique which is used by Airbnb. They call it go live from day one. This has been cited in the Harvard Business Review, and they say that jump into the pool the moment you get to it, because it empowers you with a sense of purpose and responsibility. In Airbnb, during the first day, employees are encouraged to push code straight to the website. Then there is a company by the name of DBS. Gandalf, Gandalf, talks of Google, Apple, Netflix, DBS, Amazon, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Now, out of all these big six, the seventh one is a nondescript unknown company. It's a bank, in fact, called DBS. DBS is a success story which has been cited by Harvard Business Review. What happened in DBS was they decided on a project of their choice, and then they decided that they would take a guided lesson from anyone who was an expert on the same. Once they did that, they taught someone else the same skill that they had learned. And that advantage was the advantage of being a teacher. So these are the various companies which have utilized virtual negotiations to great benefit. I would be giving you more tips in another presentation. This was part 1 of the presentation. Let me know if you like it by subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much.